This is my first episode of talking about the world of Z. If you don't know, the world of Z is a fictional world that I created in a YouTube channel. Started off with the search for Z, which is about me trying to find Z. Then, I developed a couple sub-series like Mutant Town and Kudu Town. And then I really started to just develop this lore of this world. So let's start out with the world itself, right? Where are we? Where in the universe are we? Well, we're in the solar system. More precisely, we are on Earth. It is Earth, if you didn't know. And one of the ways that you can find this out is just by looking at different locations and landmarks in the future. And speaking of future, it is the time of the future, the really distant future. In fact, 2,000 years from the present day. 2,100 to be exact. Now, if you've seen Search for Z and Mutant Town and Kudu Town News, then you probably are a little confused because this is definitely not the same Earth that exists right now. And the answer to that is nuclear war. So, yes, Search for Z occurs 2,100 years after a full-scale nuclear war on Earth. We don't need to get into the details about why the war started or how it started, and which countries were involved, because that's not important, really. I would say all the important events for this story begin after the bombs drop, which also is how the denizens of the current world of Z keep like a calendar. So it's 2,100 years after the bombs. So, if we were to use the Gregorian calendar, it would, it would be way into the past the year 4000 AD. So, yes, all the important events happen after the bombs. And when I say that, I mean there will be stories set shortly after and centuries after as well. To see, number one, because I'm a huge fan of post-apocalyptic fiction, but number two, I want to show you really how it looked a few decades after the bombs, a few hundred years after the bombs. Because the current timeline, things are definitely settled, right? There's only radioactivity in a number of spots, and I might be tweaking the science a little bit here. But in this universe, let's say it works different. So there's only a few spots that are still radioactive. Obviously, if you've seen the show, new flora and fauna have evolved. New different types of creatures, different types of sentient creatures, of different advanced races. Which might bring us to the next question about Search for Z. Where are the humans? And are there any humans left? Well, there's me. I'm in it. It's a self-insert character. I'm in Search for Z, and I'm obviously a human. But so far, we've seen human. I'm not going to use humanoid because that implies something else. But there's been several humanesque, if you'll allow me the suffix. There are definitely a lot of humanesque characters, like Ricky Bobby and Ricky Bobby's mother. And even President Fumpo, even though he has a strange mutation on his face, they're all human-esque. They're not humanoid. They're human-esque. But they are not Homo sapiens. So here's a new lore drop for you. Before the bombs dropped, there were these hyper-intelligent computers, not AI, but hyper-intelligent computers that existed, and they weren't really ever released to the public. They were only for working out mathematics that involve space travel and like quantum mechanics and stuff. They were like as big as the CERN particle collider. And like I said, they were only used by the government, specifically like NASA and then the military as well. And they weren't used for their crazy potential because, you know, there's a lot of ethics and morality that comes with that stuff. But after the bombs dropped and those computers survived, they began to sequence the human genome. They began sequencing the human genome. And they created what are referred to as these new humans, the neo-humanites. That's the term I came up with, the neo-humanites. Which neo, right, means new. And humanite is actually a reference to a DC character, Ultra Humanite, who is a monkey. And these neo-humanites, they are probably one of the most prominent. We haven't seen a lot of them, but that is the most sparsely populated race that inhabits the planet by the year after the bombs, 2100. And so, yeah, those computers basically became God in a way and said, you know, we're going to create. And this is the thing to keep in mind, right? They're similar to appearance in Homo sapiens, but their biology is way different. Okay, we've seen, like, with President Flumpo, there's this weird mutation where his eyes are just messed up. And, you know, that's also because he has the mutant gene. So let's divert here and talk about one of the other species that live in Z World, which is the mutants. Now, mutant as a term is kind of loaded, right? It can mean several different things. In post-apocalyptic fiction, I think a mutant really is a sentient... Well, I'll just say this. An organism with some semblance of intelligence that has been affected directly by the radioactivity of the bombs, the radiation. Because I think there are some creatures in the world of Z that used to be animals but got mutated and became different animals. But when I say mutant, I'm not talking about animals. I'm talking more about beings that can comprehend, like, abstract things. So yeah, they have a sense of culture, they have a sense of self-identity that, let's say, I don't know, a moose wouldn't have. And the mutants are really the descendants of those creatures, really. They're not... The name mutant is more of a colloquial term than an actual scientific term, because they'd be the descendants, like, many times removed of the original mutants, who were literal mutants. But these mutants have gotten to a point where they're just that's just like normal for them. Like, it's no longer a mutated gene, that is what their species looks like. And that is the thing as well. They have no particular one appearance. Some can be like giant muscular humanoid males, and others can be like pieces of green slime with a face. So the taxonomy is actually different than the colloquial term, right? They'd all belong to their own subsets of mutant subspecies, right? There'd be like the mutant erectus, and there would be like the mutant pithecus, or, you know, stuff like that. You know, I'm not a biologist, I only know words. So they would be, and then you know, you really can't talk about Z World without talking about the dolphins. Okay, they've been kind of implied several times. Like, for example, my roommates were dolphins. And there's a new character I revealed, DJP, who is a dolphin. So I would say the second majority of species that inhabit Z World would be the dolphins. And I need to come up with like a cool... Ow, my cat just bit me. I need to come out with a really cool name for them. But for right now, we'll just be the dolphins. and descended from real dolphins that we have here on Earth, they really became the new intelligent species. They really neo-humanites are not as intelligent as dolphins. Okay, they're smart for the average neo-humanite, but the dolphins become the main power, and they kind of construct this new foundation and infrastructure over the ruins of the world's cities and countries, even in most continents. We'll get to that bridge when we get to it. But for example, the Evil City, which used to be New York in America, United States, is several times bigger than New York City and is highly more advanced than any science fiction show that you would have seen, because the dolphins have this extreme intellect, right? The computers have it too, but they're only able to create the neo-humanites, right? They're not able to create an intelligent species like humans were. Not that, I gotta give credit where credit is due. The dolphins are better than the humans were as well. The humans only became so great until the point they destroyed themselves, right? Hence nuclear war. So the dolphins really reach this level, and they construct cities like the Evil City, which, by the way, that's probably not its official name, but in the slang and the lingo of the world in 2100 after the bombs, that's probably what they call it, because there's a lot of bad. Well, and this is when we get into the history of it, and I'll have to make a second episode to talk about all of it. But by the events of Search for Z, the dictator had just died. Gunga, Emperor Warlord Gunga, died, and he was also president, by the way. He died, and his reign of tyranny ended. And although there's still some evil practices going on in Evil City, which we'll get to, while he was alive, it became the evilest city that ever existed. Hence the name. And you really get these moments of President Warlord Gunga, that he was evil, not just the city, but he was evil, right? He literally banned mutants from entering the city, the Great Mutant Migration. There were already mutants at that point, but the culture we see in the YouTube channel are really the descendants of the ones that got kicked out of Evil City, and they migrated past the freaky forests, and they have a settlement near Crystal Caves, which is called Mutant Town, by the way. So that's why it's called the Evil City. And in another episode, I'll be able to tell you more about Evil City. But this is just a general overview of the world. So there's also Kudu Town, and those are there are other settlements, obviously. There's tons of settlements, but these are the ones that have been revealed and the ones that are important, like the ones that are going to be in the story. Because world building can be as big as you want, don't get me wrong, but I'm just one person, and there's only so much of the story I want to tell right now. Maybe in the future I'd talk about other settlements, but the important settlements are Kudu Town, Evil City, Mutant Town, and a couple more that'll be revealed soon. And so Kudu Town is pretty much the opposite of Evil City. Kudu Town was just probably built in an empty field at one point. It's not the remains of a modern city. It was just built, not in a field, because I guess shanty implies that it'd be near water. I don't know. But Kudu Town is near water, and I don't know. Maybe it's in Maine, but I don't know if that's canon. Not sure if that's canon yet. So take that with a grain of salt. But yeah, Kudu Town, and it's very poor, and it has bad infrastructure, just like wooden shacks, and hence, that's why it's called a shanty town, And, there's one very bold and boisterous character from Kudu Town named Flingy. And Flingy, we don't know what Flingy is yet. I haven't even shown him, her, or it, or them. I haven't showed Flingy. You just have his very characteristic, iconic, high-pitched voice. But it's a high-pitched drawl. It's like, it's more like, hey guys, welcome to the news. And so yeah, Flingy is one of the local news addicts or news freaks, if you want to call it that. There's many news corporations, and corporations is the wrong word because of the shanty town, but there are many news organizations, I should say, in Kudu Town, because there's a lot of like whispers and gossip around there. And yeah, Flingy does the Kudu Town news, which I said is one of the sub-series. So that's like that's a general overview. I'll get into some other stuff like right now in terms of what some locations are around the planet. So in Europe, and this is going to be coming out in a new series, Europe is like completely reverted to the Middle Ages. But now with like magic and shit and like wizards or real. I mean, I guess Merlin might have been a person, so he was a wizard in our history. But no, it's going to be like actual real magic you would see like in fantasy stuff. So yeah, there are wizards and like not a lot of dragons, but like a little bit of dragons in Europe, and it like becomes like these kingdoms. Mainly England and Italy are the two big kingdoms, but there are probably others scattered around Europe. Now in the Pacific is Dinosaur Island, which is Hawaii and several other islands near it, and some new ones that were created from the nuclear holocaust. And Dinosaur Island, exactly as it sounds, the fossils. So here's a new lore drop for you, and this is also going to be a new series. The fossils were affected by radiation, and that's how they came back to life on Dinosaur Island, but only on Dinosaur Island, like nowhere else. They don't know why that is. So it's very dangerous because they're like, flesh-eating carnivores. But, if you are part of any of the races that live there, like these humanoid dinosaur people, like from Dinotopia, hate that movie. Then you can go there and you can visit, and they'll be friendly to you. You can even move there. But, first you have to get some method of transport because it's not easy. They're basically cars are like, in fact, most denizens that live outside of the evil city have no idea what a car is. They would just think it's a rock. Like, what is this thing? People like the mutants, they would have no concept of what a car is, how it works, that it even existed. There's not that much. 2,000 years after the bombs drop, I would imagine there would not be much remnants of human literature or culture even. That's the other thing. New York City has been rebuilt as this huge like cyberpunk place. So there are probably like vestiges of American culture.